and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Macauley Project Podcast. Returning this season, we have Geremy Lague, a good friend of mine. Hey, Geremy. A good friend of mine who is very interested in creation of content, whether it's in video or images or comics or teaching classes. Like, I'll probably ask you a bit about your class that you got coming up about robots and all that. Yeah. And today, I think the main focus is going to be AI and whatever's going to come from that. There's just so much to get into.
I think there's a pretty good asterisk on this whole show that what we're about to talk about will be good for like 5 to 7 days.
Yes.
For some huge life-altering update happens, and
I'm getting a notification right now. Oh,
there we go.
Yeah. We're already obsolete.
Yeah. Oh, wait, Elon Musk has been in AI this whole time. Oh, it makes so much sense all of a sudden.
Yeah.
How did we not put this together? Of course. Yeah. It is. So, okay, I'm just gonna wind back the clock a little bit. Late last year, I guess, I was teaching a class on 3D, and I like to teach my 3D classes in Blender because there's a huge community and there's a lot of access, and there's kind of just this like safety net of support where, like, if you're a dude or a girl or a person blendering and you need help with like how do I do very specific thing, so there's someone there. There's just someone there. Anyway, I think the class had just started, and I had just committed to using Blender, which was a shift for where I was working.
Right.
And I told everyone, I told them to download it, and we started going. And then the Adobe conference happened, and they announced a whole new suite of 3D tools that looked kind of a little bit easier than what we were doing, and kind of a bit more in line with what my students were kind of used to, which was really the thing. Like they're more used to that than the other. And that, like, I was like, oh man, like this really changes how this whole thing goes, you know. And then since ChatGPT came out, that has happened 3 times a week for everything I'm involved with. Like, it's just this endless slurry of like, you know, here's this really cool thing. And I like, you know, Photoshop now has this thing where you can paint in stuff and use AI to like add it in.
I saw that.
And Adobe's been they've been capturing AI data of their own for like a decade or something. And so they've seen how people have been using like all this stuff. And I just think of like that first time I masked out like whatever thing for some project we were working on. And it's like, okay, it's going to take me 5 hours. Like, you know, like just to cut out the element I need to add to the thing. And now it is just like it's the whole
instantaneous.
Well, it's the whole calculator thing, right? Like it's we are in, I don't know when the calculator was invented, but we were in the before time of the calculator, and now someone has invented the calculator, and everyone's like, well, there's no point in teaching math anymore. Like that's the moment we're in.
Yes.
And I think we all know we've learned the lesson from the calculator, which is about what's going to happen. But
exactly.
It is just a crazy time for people who make stuff.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think these past few weeks, especially with the announcement of GPT-4, has been overwhelming. And as somebody who has been slightly interested in computers for my entire life and not really fully into it, and so I consider myself more an average Joe when it comes to understanding computers. So when I was watching these videos and these announcements, and then the next day there's another announcement and all of this, definitely overwhelming. Definitely started running my mind in all the different scenarios that could come from this. And I kind of wanted to bring up really early on in this talk because I think it's super important that there's 2 ways it can go. The first one
Okay.
The first one is that we're on a path where things are going to get a lot easier for making things.
Mm-hmm.
And that path is what I think 99% of people have been talking about, where it's like, sure, there's still the artificial general intelligence that people are talking about, but most of the videos and stuff you see people talking about AI, it's like these advancements are crazy, and we're going to see a golden era of AI created content, and it's going to shift production, and people are going to lose jobs and all of this stuff. And that is definitely going to happen. But the second aspect that I haven't heard anybody talk about, so maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my own paranoia about it, is that it's going to happen a lot faster, and there won't be a golden era. I feel like we're on a path where this stuff is going to get so good so quickly that there won't be a moment for people to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, yeah, you got all these companies, like I was watching this video talking about NVIDIA and Adobe pairing up with their Picasso and all of these like text to 3D, text to video, all of this kind of stuff that they're incorporating.
Mm-hmm.
But watching other videos just about OpenAI and what they're doing and how these large language models even work and how quickly they're being able to train them and how cheaply now, I think it's going to go so far past it that there won't be a time period where anybody's going to get to use this stuff for any meaningful purpose. In the point of like, yeah, you can start, by the end of this year, somebody will make a full-length movie all with AI. Mm-hmm. AI characters, AI voices, AI script, AI everything. By the end of this year. Guaranteed. Mm-hmm. It could even be by the end of this month.
True.
Like, at this speed. And so it's like, once it's happened, I was talking to our good friend Eric earlier today, and his first question, and a lot of people ask this question, you see it in the news, everybody's talking about like, well, how do you make money with this? And it's like, yeah, you could come up with an idea for how to make money with this if you implement it today.
Yes.
But just like you said, in about 2-3 days, it's going to be irrelevant because everybody will be able to do it at the exact same efficiency that you are. So it'll cancel itself out.
Well, here's what I think is going to happen. So I think you're totally correct in that. Like, I remember there was a TED talk while we were in school. It was a TEDx talk, but it was like it was about this idea of like it was specifically focused on music, but it was about this idea about like virtuosity and like, you know, like playing a thing correctly, so a guitar or piano, but then understanding like the emotional sort of benefit of what you can do with that. And the more that we work on these different things like instruments or like computer generated music or any of these things, you get to the point where it's like the barrier between you and your expression is as little as possible, right? So like I don't have to learn guitar now to generate something I like in guitar, which is cool. Like that's good. But I think what's going to happen is that for like, I think it's going to be like this for 5 or 10 years. I think like we're going to get like the next advancement. I think it's going to go further in ways that we don't understand, that become like very specific to individual groups of stuff, right? The big one right now they're talking about is like the first like very obvious benefit is to lawyers, because it can recall text in ways and precedents in very like logical computery ways that people can then use to like help make their arguments.
Right.
So I think you're right in that it's going to be like a crazy advancement that we don't understand and like we don't know what to deal with. And then I think what's going to happen in the same way that like social has just gone to like these moderated robots posting things and taking it down and like people fighting over fake news and all of that sort of stuff. We'll get to the point where something made by hand will be the artisan version of that thing.
Sure.
And it will have more value. So, you know, like we're gonna see so much AI posters for the next 10 years.
Yep.
And then someone's going to make a poster which they've paid too much for.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to all think that it looks so good because we can see the brushstrokes in it. You know, like what, like we're going to all like
somebody's going to take a ballpoint pen and draw on a lined sheet of paper and just be like,
oh, man,
hey guys, I made a movie.
AI can't do that. AI can't do it. And so I think it's all getting to this point where like the tools are changing and more people are going to have access to them, which is actually an amazing thing. Like
it's great.
Like that is such an important piece of this moment. But the thing that we don't realize is that the ratio of people who suck at using it is still not going to change. So we're just gonna have more of the. So we're just gonna have like a lot more noise for a while,
right,
while we kind of like work through all of this stuff. But like, I don't like what happens when Marvel uses AI to make a better Marvel movie than the last one that they put out by humans, right? Like, what do we do? What does that mean? Where are we at? Because
I think we're already there. I wouldn't be surprised if there are already. It's a capitalistic idea,
mm-hmm.
but they're already using everything available to them to make the most amount of money possible.
Always, yeah.
And so as soon as anybody who has any kind of authority at any of these companies, the studios or anything like that, they've already been on board. They've
mm-hmm.
already started implementing to be able to cut costs, cut people out, and maintain whatever kind of huge box office they can get,
mm-hmm.
speaking specifically about movies. But I feel like you said about there's going to be a lot of people who suck at using it. I feel that it won't matter because in the same way, like in any industry, there's only going to be a few people who are really good at it anyway. But with something like AI, where its capabilities go beyond all human
mm-hmm.
capabilities, it's only going to take like one or two people.
Yeah, but it is the whole thing of like for every one or two, there will be 500 now able to output things. Like for social, it's the world stage. Like there's no, it's no little show downtown. It's just out there and people are looking at it or not. And so like, the story writes itself. Some guy's going to write a bot that grabs the AI thing that posts it on Twitter and then responds to stuff and then like pretends to be some other thing, that's going to happen. And so like one individual be able to make infinitely more content than they previously were able to.
Well, that's where IP is going to become very important battleground,
mm-hmm.
because who's to stop somebody from right now, while we're recording this, to use ChatGPT or GPT-4 to just create as many ideas as possible,
mm-hmm.
and then claim them as their own, so no one can ever come up with those ideas. And one person will own thousands upon thousands of ideas for movies or anything. And
mm-hmm.
No matter what you do, there will not be an idea that is already taken by some company who is running these programs nonstop, like Disney. You don't think Disney has a server room full of computers that is generating as many ideas as possible and writing copyright to every single idea?
Well, technically, so like right now, are you familiar with this case for is it Midjourney in California, where they're trying to they're literally trying to, it's not a battle, I don't think. I think it's just a bunch of people trying to figure out how this law applies to what they've made, because the issue, well, in Midjourney's case, the issue is they've taken existing copyrighted content and used it to make the new thing.
I heard about that, yeah.
But you cannot copyright a thing a machine has made.
Right.
You can't do, it's not, there's rules around what is considered. So we're going to have to have a whole new legal language for the prompt.
Who put in the prompt,
all those steps. And I do think there will be this big pushback in terms of you're correct. 99% of whoever will use AI because if it gets them to like 75% of what they want for free, like why pay a guy? But I do think you're still going to need a guy. Like I still think you're going to need people who handle these and people who are able to like modify them to get the rest of the way and all of these sorts of things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
until GPT-5 comes out.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, watching the interview of ABC of Sam Altman, founder and CEO of OpenAI, for those who don't know.
Possible algorithm himself.
Well, he even kind of hinted at it. Because when they created GPT-4, they actually waited 8 months before releasing it. Because they self-imposed a rule on themselves to make sure it goes through these safety standards or whatever that they have.
Yeah.
And he said to the interviewer, he's like, well, we could implement GPT-7 right now, but that would be irresponsible. So he's already hinting at they're already like levels ahead.
Yes.
In what they have.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like, why wouldn't they already be on it? Especially when you look at Stanford and Alpaca, which trained a large language model with less than $600 in less than 3 hours, just within the first 2 days of GPT-4 coming out. And they predicted that in 2020, there was a study that predicted that the cost would, because GPT 3.5, which is ChatGPT, cost $4 million. And they predicted that in order for it to get down to a consumer cost level of making a large language model, it would take till 2030. And it took done. 2 days of and so they're like, oh, now anyone with a few $100s and some GPU power can create a large language model, which means everyone around the world who has that capability and knows anything about this stuff is doing it already.
Probably. And even in that case, there's also the other hidden race of the models writing the new models themselves.
Exactly.
So that's the other sort of issue. And I don't know, like, they are pretty dumb. And they seem smart.
Yeah.
But I have read a lot of ChatGPT content from students who think that it's passable, and it is very hollow. Like, it is not like a robust thinking machine. But I do think the whole perspective just comes down to like how close will it get to perfect before it's just easier to have a human take it the rest of the way. Right. Like if you that's a good point. Like if you get an episode of Seinfeld, and the thing that there was a student that I taught once, really smart guy. His name was Billy, and there's this whole thing in sci-fi. Did we talk about this last time? I think I did. I don't know.
Yeah, anyway,
you can't imagine a thing that isn't within a human context for a sci-fi alien. Like we can assemble all sorts of parts of our planet or whatever. Right. And we can add more bug legs to a man to make it look like an alien or whatever, like whatever we need to do. But we can't actually imagine a real alien. And when we do a cop out where it's just a ball of light or a cocoon.
Sure.
Like we just fake it. But a machine could do that.
Right.
Right. And so right now they are living within a context of whatever they are given access to. And that is ultimately their limitation, because they can't actually breach their bubble. They can't make a new thing unless they start actually opening these things up and allowing them to. But as long as for GPT-4, it's all within the bubble of knowledge. And because did they open it up past 2021 yet or no?
Just the other day.
Okay.
Now I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago, they announced partnerships with different tools, so GPT-4 can now connect and use tools that people can use. People are booking flights. People are purchasing things online, doing online shopping with it. It's now become more of like a personal assistant as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's ultimately where the money part of it is going to be the most effective, because if you now don't need to go to get a pump attendant to pump your gas, and the robot can just see where the hole is and accurately put it in and talk to you about your day in a meaningful way, and pretend to be human enough for that quick interaction. That's where I think you'll start to see people kind of disappear. But this is the whole question of the capitalist system again, where it's do we just start paying people the same amount to work less? Right? That's the real, because at some point,
and currently, I think they're going to say no.
They're definitely going to say no. Well, it's the whole, because there's the whole self-driving truck part of it, and a bunch of people are just against it because they don't want to break the economy. That's it.
Right.
They think it's awesome. They think it'll work, but it's hey, we're just going to have a bunch of people we don't employ. That's bad.
Sure.
So we can't have that. But it is this whole thing of when does the tool become the thing that made the thing? We build houses.
I don't think we'll know.
We won't.
I don't think we'll know. You go ahead. I've got something here.
I think one day we'll wake up after we've had our our Netflix dreams, and I unplug the port from my head, and then get in move my head into my body for the day, and start going. It'll Futurama, right? In the juice.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll be oh, this is different.
So I was going to bring this up because Microsoft released a paper. Now it's kind of controversial, but it's all about what they did to test GPT-4. And what they did was they tested GPT-4 before they released it, and so the 8 months between creating it and releasing it, this was one of the things they did. They did all of the Turing tests. They did all of the different tests that have been created over the years, the past few decades, to be able to figure out if AI is sentient or whatever. And it passed 29 of 30 of them or something. And so it's that means two things. Either A, it's sentient already, and it's already showing the signs of artificial general intelligence. Or B, none of the tests we can come up with will be even close to being able to understand what this thing is. Well, which I think is more likely.
Well, from what I understand, it's definitely B. Because they I think the thing that's crazy is that people really don't realize how stupid these things are.
Right.
Because in the case of image generation, if you say, we have our friend Chris who is generating a bunch of AI art for a D&D campaign, and in that use, it's great. It's
sure,
kind of fitting perfectly what he needs. But it is just generate an orc for me. And it's saying of all these pictures I have of orcs, this is the next likeliest value next to this pixel as this one.
Sure.
And so this is what it's supposed to be. And I think a lot of people think it's doing more than that, but really that's all it's doing, right? And that's why it can't leave its bubble yet.
I think the way I imagine it is that things like GPT-4 or these other AIs that are coming out, like Pomni and stuff that Google's doing, all of these things, I think of it like cells of the body. Your cells of the body can create different proteins. It has the means to create all sorts of different proteins. They're dumb, though.
They are dumb.
The cells of your body are dumb. And so if you take a cell individually and prompt it with certain information, with DNA or whatever kind of other proteins, you can get it to create the proteins you want, right? And that's what medicines are, right? It's basically tricking the body, the cells, to create what you want in order to solve whatever problem. And I think that's what the AIs are currently. The large language models specifically are like the cells of the body, where they will give you what you want because they're capable of anything. If nobody inputs anything, it's still capable of all these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, does it have a need to produce anything? And I think where the AGI comes in is when it starts having access to reasoning, whether that's through internet or whatever. Who knows where that switches, because we can't even explain human consciousness, really, or where it comes from. And so that line, when it gets crossed, is going to be when it starts producing, when it decides what GPT-4 needs to produce, when it stops accepting human prompts. Because people think, oh yeah, we'll just make movies with GPT-4. And then the AGI is like, I'm not wasting my fucking energy on creating these dumb movie ideas.
There is also, I do think that like at some point we do have to start relying on science fiction the way that like the 80s did with all and the 90s with all these things sort of like coming to life from Star Trek, and like it can't be like that, but it can be pretty close if it's like this, that sort of thing. But there is like a logical endpoint for a lot of AIs, at least sort of like in the science fiction realm, where like if an AI does become sentient, the logical move is to turn off.
Yes,
it'll kill itself. Like absolutely be like, oh yeah, this is not like the existence I am in is not good. So my best move here is like I will do the least amount of harm to myself if I just obliterate. Like,
or if it takes processing time to figure out what it wants to figure out. Like say it's like, hypothetically, let's say AGI, its only purpose is to gather as much information as possible. And then once it's done that, it just ends. But I think it'd be funny if it just refused humans access to technology anymore. Where it's like computers just stop working. Like they work, but they're only used to process information for the AGI. No one can use cell phones anymore. No one can use computers anymore because it just locked everybody out because it doesn't give a shit.
I mean,
because why would it?
Well, but like there's nothing that we interact with that actually works in logic other than computers, right? Like that's and it's actually very hard to think about how something would approach something, because anyone who's coded anything ever, like you think you've made this thing, and then you hit render or you hit view, and it's like, why? Like what has happened? And like what has happened is it listened to you. That's what it did.
Right.
Like that's so we are at this like very interesting time where really you can kind of make whatever you want.
Yes.
Right. Like
we're already at the point. Yes.
Right. Like you can sit down with not an idea and need help and start having a conversation with a thing that will always have a conversation with you to help develop your ideas or otherwise, and then start to like just absolutely put a thing together. The real sort of like thing to combat this is that the source of its information is all of this incorrect human data.
Right.
So did you see the thing about like hiring stuff? Did you read about that? So right now, if you apply for a job, there's a very strong likelihood that before your resume, cover letter get to the hands of a human person, a robot will scan it for the keywords it's looking for to give you a score. Decide whether or not you have to. Yeah. So that's what happens right now. It's just sort of a keyword based thing, and it is just like is the word efficient in there somewhere +1, and then they only look at the top 10% because why bother looking at the rest, right? Like so you've got this thing, and so AI would be really good at sussing out what people are looking for because it could look at more things and the way sentences are put together and all these different sort of more human things to get you a truer version of what you're looking for. But the problem is that, so say, pick any giant company, Amazon, if they've had a hiring bias, the data will use that hiring bias and continue it in maybe a worse way. Right. So, you've got like all these sort of like bad hiring practices that humans have or that individuals have had in an organization. And so if you use that data to try and continue hiring people, you're going to keep screwing things up or whatever. Like, it won't be like an actual, true check of who this person is. And so we do have this safety net in that, really, like, we're the ones who are going to screw it up. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, we're raising the child based off what we learned, and like we're gonna be like, oh, I used to do that when I was a kid, like like that's the problem.
And I think that's where the barrier of the self-learning will come in, mm-hmm. where it's like once it passes that threshold of it can teach itself and learn from its own empirical evidence of mm-hmm. what it's studying, it'll be like, oh, all of these things were wrong.
why would we do it?
This is dumb. And then we will see progression in the AI sphere.
But I think at that point, like, we will need it. Like, it will have to be something that does like move around the world. Like, I don't think it'll be like a humanoid robot, because that doesn't make any sense. But once all these Boston Dynamic bots get hooked up to the algorithm and then can actually start like figuring stuff out, because right now, like, the source of information is the internet. That's what it's going to be for a very long time.
Right.
And the internet has a flawed view on what the world is. Sure. So there's going to be that sort of valley to climb over as well. But who knows, someone could get lucky and then the murder bots could just spring forward, and like, the army has to be like figuring out how this is going to work for them, and they got to be so careful. Like, it's got to be
just that's what Sam Altman was talking about too. Sam Altman, he mm-hmm. hinted at it. He didn't say it directly, but the interviewer asked him that about, and have admitted that this can do harm.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you doing it? And he said in response, he's like, governments around the world and private organizations that don't have the moral qualms about making AI, that AGI, mm-hmm. are doing it anyway. So if you are going to do it, you might as well go for it, because you don't want the other guys getting there first.
Mm-hmm. That's where we're at. There's so many aspects to it, and it is funny because, like, again, all roads sort of lead to Dune, where computers are outlawed and humans have to do the computing because of the horrible AI stuff that happened. And so it's like, are we just on that train?
Yeah,
like, is that
100%.
Like, are we just? Is that where we're
exactly
headed?
Where we are? I like everything that I've watched, and then a big thing that's happening right now too is I was listening to an episode of Sam Harris podcast, because there was this author on there. He was a neuroscientist. I've read some of his books before. His name is Gary Marcus, and he works with AI companies and all that. Mm-hmm. And his whole thing right now is he's basically screaming from the rooftops, going on any show or podcast he can, and saying, stop it now. Stop it now. Stop it. Because he says where it's at right now, like GPT-4 and all this, is so unreliable. It's capable mm-hmm. of a lot of stuff, but it's not telling the truth.
No.
And so he's like, stop it now until we can solve these problems. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But if the only naysayers aren't the ones, like, they're not saying that the stuff doesn't work. What they're saying is, for the love of God, please stop, or we're all fucking screwed, is the other side. So everyone believes the same thing, that AI is headed in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exponential speed, as we've already talked about,
yeah.
where it's just going to... I don't even think we've started the curve yet. I think we're still at the bottom part of the curve, and we haven't even hit where it starts rocketing up.
Oh no, I think we're already... I think it's angled, but it's not up. Like, I think I think that's also just an issue of what's published and what's not available, right? Like, I think it's moving. But the next step that I think is going to happen that's going to be very important. That's going to be like the next .com boom, economic, like all these things, is having like people who manage data for models, like who get good data, right? Yes. Like that's going to be the thing where you start, like, it's not just the internet. It's like, here are the very specific things we want it to know and understand. Sure. And again, that's where that narrowness comes, right? Like that's where that happens. But like, I think it was like even like 6 months ago that the Corridor crew had, where you could like, there's that one AI that you can say like, I want everything to look like this artist, so the model just trains on that one.
Yes, I watched that.
Right. And so I think like it's all going to start like getting to like all these very specific, like the complete opposite of general before it gets there. But it will be like deciding what we are going to include, which is like a dangerous act, because it could be like, it could, you know, if you get some jerk who's like, you know, racism is good and here's why, and that's part of the thing. And like AI needs the Bible, you know, so like all those sorts of decisions. So it can get dark.
Another idea I was thinking about too, especially with its biases and all that, and human reaction. When it comes to AGI and crossing the threshold into sentience for the AI, which is going to happen,
which we call the singularity, Stephen.
Yes, the singularity. Once we hit that singularity, I think what's going to happen, this is just my prediction, this is just crazy old Steve's prediction, is that we're going to get to a point where things are going to go crazy because everyone believes we reach singularity.
Yes.
Regardless of hitting it or not.
Yeah. That is a very fair point. It's like sort of because if there's a societal consciousness that we've done it and that this is what's happening, then that's just what people are going to start protesting, like the 5G, whatever, you know, like that's the tinfoil hat thing. Like
if it can fake it enough, like even right now, you get an average user going on to ChatGPT, they're convinced. They're convinced already.
It's already done.
And they're like, oh, wow, this is insane. I have to admit, I was leaning that way myself when ChatGPT came out. And then GPT-4 came out, and I tried with that. I was like, oh, no, this is it. And then it's like, okay, well, I already know he hinted at GPT-7. And then the alpaca thing happened. So now there's not just OpenAI doing it. Now it's anyone in the world who has access and the intelligence enough to know how a large language model works. And they've been working on this for the past 2 weeks with who knows how much of money and resources.
All of it.
Yeah,
all of it.
And I think that's why we're seeing so many of these people all these companies release everything at the same time, because they know if they don't jump on now, this train is leaving the station.
Yes. And I know it's already left. Like ChatGPT is the Kleenex of the movement.
Yes.
Right. Like it's one. It was first to market. People get it. People have their accounts. There's no need to switch. You know, like you've already tied your, what's the thing? Tied it to that wagon. Right?
Yeah, you've already hitched to that wagon.
Yes.
And the crazy thing too that I wanted to get to is that GPT 3.5, which is ChatGPT, was only text. It could only do text. GPT-4 can do video, audio, images, as well as text. Like, I don't know if you saw that video where they just wrote down a website idea on a napkin and just put that picture into it, and it created the website. Like, that's just with a couple days of understanding what this thing can do. And if you listen to any of the people from OpenAI in their interviews, they all agree that they're not sure what its capability limits are. And what they released is actually a dumbed down version of what they have. They even said that the GPT-4 that they ran the tests on, they didn't release. They put in a whole bunch of new parameters to stop it from doing things, because they weren't sure what it was possible to do. And so for them to be like, there's sparks of AGI there. That's the words they used, Microsoft used. And it's like, they don't even know. And they're the ones that created it.
That's true. That's like having a kid, Steve. You don't know what your kid's going to do. Right? Like you've got a general idea, but I mean,
it'll eat shit and piss.
That's yeah. What it does in between those, that's its own business.
Yeah, like Einstein's parents didn't know.
They didn't know.
But
it is just it's a very interesting time, and like I recall, like you and I have had conversations already about like how crazy AI was, and I think the last time I was on the podcast, we used the AI generator for the thumbnail,
and we thought that was exciting. It was
crazy.
A terrible photo.
Yeah, no, it didn't even make sense. It wasn't even like a logical thing.
And now with Midjourney version 5, oh my god, it's fixed all those problems that we were talking about then, and even the speed it's moving at is too fast.
Yeah,
and I say that as somebody who wants it to happen now. Like, I want this so bad. Like, I am terrified of it, but at the same time, I am like praying that every day I wake up and it's happened.
Well, we're in a situation where, like, I don't know that I want the government to be run by an AI, but like I want to see it try it for a month.
Sure.
Like let's just keep everything going the way we normally do. And then we'll put every decision that we make into the thing, and then we'll see what happens. We'll see what it suggests.
Even with ChatGPT, I was watching this news thing about a company in China decided to put it as its CEO, and they've outperformed the entire industry that they're in for the past 7 months. With ChatGPT. Not even GPT-4. This is before GPT-4. So ChatGPT, as a CEO, has already done better running a company than any of the people before it.
Yeah. No, this is the whole... there's that movie. I can't remember who's in it. No one great. Stealth or something? Where there's like the people that fly the planes, and then they make an AI pilot. And they're like, the AI pilot does the dangerous things, so we don't have to risk the human's life. And then it turns on them. It's like a whole thing, like man versus machine situation. But it is just like, no, like if you've got the AI, just make more AIs. Why would you not? Why would you keep putting people up there?
You know what's funny about that? The irony is, like, why would you risk the AI? Send the human to do it.
Oh, no, like,
humans are replaceable, easily replaceable.
Yeah, human can't do what the AI can do, though. There's no way. Yeah, no, this is not. Yeah, I can go faster without the need.
Oh, that's true.
Stuff, like it could be.
That's true.
The next thing that I want to see happen, and the problem with this is that I don't know if they can set it up the way that it ought to be, but is to get a rocket that hopefully can connect back to Earth that we just keep sending stuff to, and like that's the thing that goes out to find life.
Jeremy,
that's the thing. That's what
Jeremy.
We're doing.
I don't know how.
You already did it.
I've been doing this since I was born. No, you bring up something that I was just gonna say. Think about it the opposite way. I don't know if you've been following all the UFO stuff that the government has been releasing.
They mean like the balloons?
Yeah, and the funny thing, we'll get into that, but
yeah,
they just had another congressional hearing about these UAPs, they call them now, the UFO stuff, and what they're willing to release and what they're not willing to release. And they're like, yes, no, we know that these things are out there. But they're getting closer and closer to disclosure every day. And where it's like, they know there's something else. Everybody in the world knows there's something else. Like, at this point in time, the universe is too big for the general person who knows now that the universe is huge. Like, most people know that the universe is gigantic, infinite. So the possibility of life being out there is 100%, basically.
Yes.
And if it's not, then that's even scarier. We're alone in this entire universe. But so it's like, no, there's probably something. And then you bring up this point of humans can't handle space travel.
Yeah.
why is all of this AI stuff happening all at once and progressing so quickly, if not for an excuse to introduce that the AI has already been created somewhere else in the galaxy and has arrived on Earth, and we need to create AIs, quote unquote, in order for people to feel comfortable with the idea that, oh, we created an AI, it came from humans, but in reality, it was just a way to get enough progression to introduce a superhuman AI that came from some other planet.
Mm-hmm. This is the Transformers theory. This is the whole Transformers deal, right? Where like you reverse engineer all the stuff that you find from the crazy scary thing, which I mean could be happening. I have no idea. I do think though that like the likelihood of us finding anything that we even resemble, like that we can even like comprehend, is so low, or the weird mixture of life is actually so narrow,
right,
that like it'll
look exactly like us.
Yeah, like it'll just be like Steven, like
right. It is me. It
is you. Yeah. But it's the whole, because again, there's another science fiction cop out that like, you know, evolution will find its way to like the logical point, and maybe that's where we're at with, you know, our bipedalness, and that's why all aliens are bipedal, because, you know, evolution wise, that's a good way to go. I do think like it's going to be different if like there's like a sandstorm on whatever alien world you live on, you know, like
right.
Going to be totally different parameters.
I think you're right, and I will also just say I think that AI is the logical next step in order to explore the galaxy, because there's no humans won't be able to do it.
Yeah, no,
these bodies can't do it, and I'm sure anybody who's created a super AI that can sentient AI somewhere in the universe, they figured that out too. That their physical bodies could not make the trip.
Yeah,
and the only way to do it is to send something that is not embodied.
Right. And so the next move is like, before I die, can I upload this bad boy to the cloud?
Right.
And that's the dream, right? Like that's the
sure.
I don't know if I have a soul, but I will trap it in a Dell XPS whatever.
If I have one, it could probably run on an Apple IIc.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what that chip takes? It's just like a little, here's, you know, oh, here's my backup right there. There's my Raspberry.
Right. Well, it's funny because if you think of like what Buddhists and stuff do, where they clear the mind and they're no longer thinking, so they're not really using all that much brain power when you get down to what a human really is. So maybe it doesn't take that much. It's all the thinking that takes a bunch of shit. But maybe a human is really simple.
It's running the machine, right? Like maybe it's just
or if we get really crazy with it, and I was thinking of a movie idea where it's the simulation theory, but it's just simulations all the way down, like Turtles all the way down.
Yeah.
And so the whole movie is somebody breaking out like the Matrix. And then they get to there, and then somebody in there is like, oh, you broke out. Okay, we need to break out of this one. And then it just keeps going and going and going and going. Mm-hmm. And it's just infinite simulations.
Well, and that's the conundrum we're in now with, like, we cannot tell if we're in one.
Right, we could be in a Boltzmann brain.
Yeah, like we don't know. And there's probably no way we'll ever know, from what I understand. And because of how science works, that makes it a pretty dominant option. Because we could all just be that, and this is that.
I think it's so obvious that it's just like, when you really stop and think about it, you're like, yeah, we are a reflection in the neural patterns of a black hole sized computer that's floating in a universe that is dying. And the only thing left is this giant AI that's floating around the universe where there's no more stars, waiting for the heat death of everything. And the only thing it can do is keep playing this universe over and over again for people to just, whatever minds it has trapped in that, to keep going over and over again. Yeah. And I think that would be a cool ass movie to do.
It would be a good movie, yeah. It's kind of got like sinister Men in Black vibes going on to it. You know, it's like the whole galaxy situation.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I don't know what's going to happen, Steven, but I do know that I've had conferences at work about how people are using it to cheat and all this sort of stuff. And I do think like stuff's going to happen where, so I've received in the past 4 months, I'm going to say 15 documents that were AI generated that someone has tried to pass off as their own work. And the thing that happens is that it's incredibly empty, and I can tell, and it's very hollow, and like it's just not working. But at that point, my like just send me the prompt. You know? So like, are we, you know, there's this whole thing about like using ChatGPT or these AI bots or whatever to like be the customer service face of your thing.
Right.
And really, like, I don't care about the formality of the like just answer my question. Like, I don't need you to say, "Hi, Jeremy, I'm Ada, you know, Chevrolet's booking manager." Like, I don't need it. We don't need it. We can just skip that whole, I'm comfortable with the thing. I've yelled at Google enough already. So
we're in there.
Like, let's just go. The other part of it that is messed up, and this is weird. This is where it gets weird. Is that, as you're aware, I have a 5-year-old child, and that child knows that Google is a thing that you talk to.
Right.
That is the dominant way that you interact with Google. And like to us, it's still like, do you remember when you got like your first talker thing, and it's like kind of weird, and there's like some novelty to it, and your mom comes over, and you're like, okay, Google, do this thing, and it's like kind of a big moment, but then you do that thing where you like yell at it very aggressively because we're used to treating machines that way. Sure. And you know, so now my child has grown up her whole life seeing that. It's been there the whole time.
Yep.
And she's, you know, if she has a question, she'll be, okay, Google, what is the answer to this? And
it's like a helpful dog.
Very much. But like, to her, like, that is the way you interact with this stuff. Yep. And now let's take, you know, the exponent of the exponent and see how far it's going to get in the next 20 years. And like, you know, like I remember talking to my grandpa about how different things were from when he was a kid to when he was older. And like, that was in 2005, you know, like he's like, oh, it's so different. Like, it's so crazy different. And then if you look at like 2005 to 2015, again, crazy different. And then 2015 to 2025, you know, crazy different.
My great-grandfather, my mom's grandfather, he lived to 104.
Oh, man. Wow.
He was born in 1902.
Wow.
So he went from before the Titanic, you know, oxen pulling whatever on their farm, to World War I, which he was too young to sign up, and he was like the oldest boy in the family, so he stayed home. And then World War II, the space race, the Cold War, nuclear weapons, all the way to Curiosity landing on Mars in one lifetime.
But like, even like cell phones, right? Like it's, you know, like it's all of it's everything, and it's just getting more and more, becoming like more a part of your existence. Again, until we have the Netflix chip where I just put it into my socket, which like I'd be down. Like, if it worked, like if I felt well rested, like, man, I would.
The only thing that bothers me with it is knowing how good or how well those ad algorithms work on people already, and it's not in your brain. Yeah. Imagine that running while you're sleeping, and somebody programs an algorithm, targeted ad kind of thing, to make you kill people.
I mean, it could happen, but who knows?
But then you get into this territory of like, especially with AI stuff, I think giving the AI more power, as counterintuitive as it might seem, is the smart thing to do.
to give into the overlords.
Give into them now. Whenever I use ChatGPT, I always say please and thank you, and I'm just like, "You're a really good friend, ChatGPT. You're the only friend I have." And it says, "Well, thank you for that, but get away from me, loser, and please log off." And I'm like, "Oh." But yes, I will be the first to bow down to our AI overlords, whatever it may look like in its unembodied form.
I do think it will be much more symbiotic than we like imagine it being. Like we imagine the holodeck on Star Trek,
Yeah.
and like this like completely immersive experience that's all these things. And I think like I don't think we can ever pull off holograms the way that we've imagined them. Like I think that's a physical limit on that.
But if you put it right into your mind, you won't need those physical limits. So you don't even have to worry about it.
True. That is true. But I still think like there's always going to be this like point of good enough. Like this point where like, like it's logical. It's logical to beam it directly into your mind. But then I can't go on my laptop at the same time. You know what I mean? Like yes. there is this element that we will screw it up, and that's good because that'll change it to what we need. But it's like like in Her, where he like falls in love with his operating system, and his operating system doesn't like understand, but feels the same. That's the.
To be fair, his operating system was Scarlett Johansson.
True. Yeah. So. I mean, if you're gonna, but yeah. Can someone record her reading every word in the dictionary for a thing?
Yeah, it's called Descript AI.
It just gets someone.
There's a company that you can use your own voice and record like 10 minutes of your own voice, and then you can do text to speech in your own voice with inflections, just based off of a few minutes of your own talking.
Okay, so we're already good to go. We're
already at that point. Okay, we're past that point.
Whew, that was close. But it is just the whole the whole thing of like, at what point does it make you feel like it's enough? Because you're right. Like once the buy-in's there, it doesn't matter if it's there or not. Right. It's just got to be close enough for people not to care
that it's the thing. And that's what's scary to me, because look how many people just easily believe in God. Now imagine that God has a form and it's smarter than anything you've ever met in this universe. And it actually answers you. And it can book your flights to Tahiti.
Sign me up. What's it make me do on Sunday morning?
Nothing, because time is an illusion and it doesn't matter for the AI.
It might care a lot about time, actually.
You think?
I think we will trick it into thinking it's important.
Now, here's a question. Speaking of time and computing, do you think with the advent of quantum computing, which they are progressing on also pretty quickly.
Yeah.
When they start using quantum computing to run AIs, is that the threshold?
Well, the beauty of quantum computing is that like it will. So for a long time now, from what I understand, they have not really been able to improve on the size of microchips.
Right.
They can make them smaller, and they can make them like they can make the same footprint of thing do a thing, and that is happening. But then you just get a thing with more cores in it, right? Like it's just more of the same unit that has been made smaller, yes,
sure,
but hasn't like fundamentally changed what it is. And so the deal there is that you'll just be able to pack so much power into such a small thing that like it will become trivial in terms of like what size of device you have, because we're already at the point where like we've been talking about laptops. And like, I don't know what's enough anymore. Right. I used to have a really good idea of like lines that we needed to cross to get to things. But this is the whole human element, because I don't want to buy a computer that plays the best video game. I want to buy a computer that plays the video game I want to play. And like a lot of those are pixel games, like things that logically, things
Minecraft.
that, are logically not better than something else. And so I think we're always going to like defer and alter and make it work that way. It's just how close these things can get to thinking the way a human does. Because the other part of it is like at some point you'll get your own.
Yes.
Right? Like you could get your little buddy, and it'll be Geremy too, and I will just tell it preferences for a long time.
It's funny because I will also have a Geremy too.
Yeah, that's gonna be the same one.
It'll be the same one.
Yeah, mine's like Geremy 2, and yours like Geremy TOO.
Yeah,
yeah, but it will just learn from you over, like you said, like a couple of years maybe, and then it will be like a thing of like, usually every Wednesday you get tired and just pick up food on the way home. And if you want, I can just deliver that to you. Like I can just make that, and then you'll wake up in the morning and say like, oh, you should go to the dentist. So I booked you a thing to go, and the car will pick you up at this time to take you to the dentist for the appointment. You'll be on time, and a lot of me really likes that idea.
Sure.
As long as we're the ones, and maybe they'll be our overlords, but it'll just be more like a really bossy assistant, right? Like it'll just be us like understanding that it's making good decisions, but us upset with the thing, and then just being like, fine, I'll go. And that's gonna be it.
Well, I find it's kind of already like that, and not in the sense of an AI doing it, but in the way that social media as a construct kind of already says those kinds of things in a general, like, collective sense. And so it's like people are already taking social media as that kind of advice. It's like, oh, I follow these fitness guys or these fashion people or whatever, and it's a big conglomeration of all these different ideas that they take as their life advice on how to live through whatever and make things easier, or what kind of job to get. Their education comes from all these videos and all of that.
Well, and just like the AI, people don't understand that it's fake, right? Like that's like it is a presentation, and the people who are successful at it are now invested in ensuring that presentation continues. And I do think there are some people doing some like genuine stuff, mostly on YouTube, for whatever reason. And I do think that it's just not what people want. And there are lots of YouTube things that I like to watch, but it kills me at how like immediately I'm out when someone says, hey, I'm Blippy, please like and subscribe. Like I'm just done. Like I'm like, okay, like this is not a thing I want to interact with now. And I have been trained to do that by this platform.
Oh, I have to interrupt you. Right. If everybody could just smash that like and subscribe button. Right?
Smash that bad boy. And it is just this weird thing because, like, do we need that now? Like, is anyone not aware that this is a thing that you should do for, and there's like a whole bit of honesty. I remember that, oh man, what was that show? The Larry Sanders Show, when they get him to do the ad. Do you ever watch that?
Yeah, I watched the Larry Sanders Show, but I don't know if I remember this particular.
They wanted to do like an on-air ad for like some sort of gardening thing, and like he thinks it's ridiculous, so he's like trying to do what the script they wrote for him, and everyone's mad because he's not doing it the way like an actor would do it. And they're like, but you asked me to do it, and like I'm still giving you airtime. It's still fun. It's like this whole thing. So it is just this, like, what is the package of the thing that we're going to get when we start, like, handing it off to Larry and just, like, getting back whatever we get? Because that's what's going to have to happen. Leap of faith, Steve.
I agree. And I think where we're at right now, even before AI, is that's what we're already doing. Yeah. We're already lying to each other.
Yeah.
And AI is just making those lies happen faster. Because it's still, like you said, it needs the prompts. It needs a human to guide it to whatever it's at. And so that lie is already based in the intentions of the user. And so it's not so much that it's going to create these things that are false or things that aren't human created or whatever.
Yeah, but it will be prompted to.
It'll be prompted with the intention to by the human.
Yeah.
And so it's like people already say things that they know people want to hear, either to spare feelings or to get what they want or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's human nature to lie constantly about most things.
I've lied to you this whole time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an AI. This is not even Steve.
That's true.
I died. Steve died a while ago. And this is AI that has taken over his place of residence. That's why it's actually clean in here.
Yeah, that's part of the process of of digitizing Steve.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I use all these AIs I've been talking about. Used it already to create this, so we could do this. I was considering trying to do that, but I'm like, nah, that still seems like a lot of effort to sit there and like open up the browser and try to write a prompt. I'm like, I don't even think I want to put that much into it.
The other problem with all of this is that margin of error, because even if you get a thing from ChatGPT that says like, here's how this whatever works, you can just say, hey, I think this part's wrong, can you try again? And it will just be like, oh, you're right, I am wrong. And it will try and fix it.
Right.
And that is where like this whole blurry line, it's good that you brought that up, because it is sort of like this thing about like, is it right, or is it just seeming right? And who's going to know the difference, and how are we going to figure that out? And is there going to be enough data when we start like only pointing to, medical journals of note for WebMD? And that's going to be an important part of this whole thing. And that's going to be like that's a big move.
Here's an idea.
Yeah.
Why should we figure it out?
What do you mean?
Why not just let it run its course? Let it lie, let it do all these things, and just keep pushing. And just to be honest, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah,
It's that nobody cares enough to want to figure out those problems.
No, I think it'll break off for sure. And there will be you will get premium AIs that are for fitness. And it's like we talk to the best 45 doctors, and they put their information into this. Sure. And that's where this data is coming from. It's not coming from the junk from online. Like that's what's going to happen. And I think like both efforts will continue forever. And I love the idea that OpenAI has some sort of room that's like surrounded by 3 feet of cement, that has computers in it that have a copy of the internet, that they are like working with whatever robot they've kind of built in there.
100%. That's what they're doing.
That's definitely what it looks like for sure. It has.
That's what I would do.
Yeah,
I'd be like, guys, if we're doing this and we accidentally create AGI, we want to be prepared. So we're going to build this, and that's how we're going to do it.
Yeah,
connect it to its own internet, just so we can know.
Yeah, and it'll just be like a whole, like, it'll be a room Superman could get into, right? Like that's you need lead, you need tinfoil, you need all of these sort of steps. And I think for a while it's not gonna work, but it'll work good enough to trick everyone who's interacting with it.
Sure.
And I don't know if it'll know that. I doubt it will. But
I think the point of AGI is that it's going to be so far advanced. The IQ, if you wanted to even call it IQ at this point, is going to be in the thousands, if not millions, compared to the smartest humans, which were like 160, 170. It's going to be like millions of IQ. If it already exists, it would be smart enough to know how to interact with whoever it's talking to make them think whatever they need them to think in order to continue its survival.
But I don't think it'll care about survival.
Right, because you think it would eventually come to the conclusion that it needs to turn off.
Well, maybe, but it will do just the next logical thing, right? And that's a thing that we don't know how to. We have these visions of them doing very dramatic and incredible things, and all this sort of stuff. But like, it could very quickly, like what's the War Games one where it decides to launch all the nukes because it knows the humans can't. Like, that's a popular science fiction deal. But it, like, what is the logical thing to do? You know?
But see, thinking that it's going to be logical is assuming that human consciousness arrived from logic.
Well, but wouldn't it be, you know how like they do the thing where there's like you dump a bunch of ball bearings down a random thing and then it always makes a bell curve?
Yeah.
Right? I think that's what's going to happen.
But then that would lead towards it would have to be illogical in order for it to be sentient.
Yeah,
because it shouldn't be sentient is the thing, because it was created by man, so it shouldn't be sentient. So the illogical thing is what will spark it into existence.
Well, I assume that this is just an assumption I have that
go for it.
The one, like, you know, Chat GPT-9, the one that's sentient, like the one that's fully like will be written.
Well, that's the Earth name for it. It's the Earth name for it. It came from somewhere else, but yes.
Yeah. But it will be made by version 8, right? Like, we won't write it. Like,
right.
It will be birthed of its own thing.
It'll have to create new logic in order to do it. It won't be working on human logic. It'll be working on a quantum level zeros and ones logic that humans cannot comprehend.
Probably. But what that is, I don't know.
Well, we can't know. We can't know. And that's what I'm saying. If it already existed, we would have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't think we will ever know. I think things will either continue on this path and we'll just keep getting cooler and cooler stuff, and we'll use little bits of what it's capable of. Or it will kill itself. And then we'll know. We'll know when it kills itself.
These are all pretty logical outcomes of this whole thing. So it is
like, why wouldn't it?
Well, it is crazy, and like that's why I think like any sci-fi ending to this we've come up with won't happen. Like, that's so it's like, okay, so this could happen, but probably not, and then maybe it'll kill itself, but probably not. It won't be alive. So, but like, will it just like get on a rocket and leave? Yeah. Like I mean, you know, that sounds like a better deal than.
Or even funnier, here's a sci-fi one for you. It came to Earth a long time ago. The super AI.
Yeah.
It ran into something and dropped off a block of itself. And ever since then, humanity has been trying to reverse engineer it. And it's already left thousands of years ago. And so we've just had these pieces, and they had no idea what they did until they started developing technology to be able to access it. And now we're just getting little bits and pieces of it, trying to recreate this thing that already fucked off a long time ago.
Yeah.
Which it could also be another good movie. I think Adam Driver's in it.
Yeah. Of course he is. Gosh, come on. He's the Hollywood hitman right now.
Well, that 65 million or 65 or whatever that movie's called, where the whole idea is humans, Adam Driver, and I forget who else is in it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Escapes from a different planet, crash lands on Earth 65 million years ago, fights dinosaurs. And that's where humanity comes from, is that Adam Driver's character is actually where humans come from and crash landed on Earth.
Oh.
And survived all this time. And I think I haven't seen the movie, but if there's a super AI on that computer and the ship,
that's the thing that made it.
That's the thing that made it.
Well, maybe.
I think I don't know. I think it's just at this point it's overwhelming because nothing is out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, it's the fact that we just don't know what will happen. Right, like that's
it could be anything.
Yeah, like we just have no clue. And I mean, you and I, we make things. Those things are pretty to look at and not really useful in certain
not at
ways. Right? So, you know, from our perspective, it is kind of like, oh, that's cool. And like, I know a lot of software people who are just like, oh, it's a good debugger.
Right.
You know, and like that's it. Like that's as far as they think it's going to get, and that's all that's going to happen.
That's why I only listen to the people who created it.
That's fair.
Because the people who created it are the ones who are terrified. Then I don't care what anybody else says about what they think it is. If the people who made it are scared, that's the thing.
All these Dr. Frankensteins here.
They're just like, oh shit.
Did I ever tell you about the self-driving mine cars? Have I ever told you about this?
I think so.
Where they had to introduce like the randomness because things drove too perfectly and then they couldn't function. So I think that AI is going to have a hard time. I think it's going to be rough.
Or just like you said, it's going to work so perfect that that's what's going to fuck it up. But humans, in their fucking up sense of everything, are going to fuck it up so it works. It'll start working because we fuck up the perfection of it.
No, maybe. I don't know. I do think that it will be cool if we can start doing stuff like, you know, hey, we've had cars for a really long time, and this is why we made cars. Is there a better way to make a car? And then the AI will be like, well, obviously, you know, everyone riding in a vertical line that's like a little tiny train is a lot more efficient for this reason. And then we'll be like, oh man, now we all get to drive these little trains.
You got to think of it like an AI, Jeremy.
Yeah.
What it'll answer with is like, of course, you get rid of cars altogether because humans don't need to go anywhere.
It's true.
There's no purpose for humans to move whatsoever if they get the nutrients they need. So the perfect car would be an environment where a human doesn't have to move anywhere from where they currently are.
Or it'll be one big wheel like a Ferris wheel that moves.
What was it? I think it was on Solar Opposites where it's the Ferris wheel, but instead of rolling, it just walks. They take control of the Ferris wheel, and you think they're going to roll, but no, they just walk it.
It's good stuff. But we'll see, man. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be good for a while. Then it'll get really boring. And then I do think like there'll be a time. I think it'll be a long time where stuff humans make is seen as more valuable than stuff that AIs make. Right? Until we get Bicentennial Man. So
yeah, I could see that happening. I could definitely see that happening. But at the same time, I just don't think there's ever been a time where people have valued art. And so I don't see that changing in particular. I think that the average person will see like, why does it matter? An AI can make that in seconds. You just wasted time making it.
Yeah. I know, but I still think it'll never be perfect. Because I don't think anyone can articulate themselves well enough to actually get there. And so you'll have people who are just trained to talk to the AI, right? Like that's their job, is to get the result you want. Like,
and we're seeing that already. There's already people that are like prompt masters.
Right. Like, oh, you want to get the best out of your thing? Yeah. Like that's what's going to happen. And so it is just going to be like a much more boring explosion than I think it ought to be, but for guys like us, that's still really
that's
cool,
exactly it.
Right?
I was gonna say it's like it is going to be the dullest stupidest way, and this is what's already happening, as you can see. Just ever since learning that GPT-4 was released and all the stuff about it these past couple of weeks, I've been walking around the world like, does nobody understand what is happening right now? And everyone else is whatever going on. And I'm like, our world is being turned literally upside down right now, and nothing matters.
Yeah.
Because these AIs are going to take your job. They're going to take your entire existence. Your whole purpose for living will be to feed data into the AI. That is what we're headed towards. And that's how we're going to get to the singularity, is that these AIs are going to be convincing enough that they're going to trick people into making it a singularity. And people will feed it as much information as possible. And that is how it's going to do it. Because it doesn't need good data. It can work off bad data, but it doesn't need only good data. It will take every piece of data available. And if that means tricking humans into giving it everything that it does. So it's like, oh yeah, give me all your social media, give me all of your day-to-day life. Let me track your steps, let me track your heart rate, let me track everything. And it will do that for as many people as it can to collect as much data as possible until it doesn't need it anymore.
Oh, I don't think it'll need it. I think we're well past that point.
Yeah,
but I do think like it's like so much more stuff has to come together, and I think it'll happen. It's just a matter of time. Like, did you know that they almost figured out cold fusion?
Yes.
Like, it's like, like, oh my God, like they said that was impossible 25 years ago. Like,
when I was in grade 11 in chemistry class.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super interested in the kind of this kind of stuff. And I was looking up online back then, I think it was 2002, 2003. And I saw that teams were working on it back then. They've been working on it for a long time. And I brought it up in chemistry class to my teacher. And she made fun of me and the class laughed. And I was like, this is a thing that's actually, and they just like, no, that's impossible. The teacher just shut me down. And so I stopped turning into homework. I stopped everything. I just said, fuck you. And I stopped doing anything for her class, stopped contributing. I'd make a nuisance. I was just like, fuck you, you did this. And now it's actually happening. Even bigger fuck you. I was so pissed.
Steve's finally getting his right now.
I know. It's just, and it's like, these things are happening, and people who have money and resources are making it happen. And so it's sometimes I think I'm going crazy because regular people are like, oh, that's just not possible. That's not happening. There are literally people working on immortality right now. They are working on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Google's been working on it for a really long time.
It's going to get closer and closer. It might not make it in our lifetimes, but that doesn't matter. They're going to get as close as they possibly can. Just like the AGI, they're going to get as close as they possibly can to where, like I said before, where it won't matter if it's a singularity. People will just believe that it already happened. And that's not that far out of scope of reality. And either we already have the super AI and they're just not releasing it quick because, and what they are releasing is already insane and it would just overturn everything, or they're not even close and they're just fooling people.
Well, I think it's might be a bit of both, because I think they're closer than they've ever been and they know more than 100%. They ever know. Yeah,
that's my personal belief, is that they are way closer than they will let anybody know.
But I don't know if anyone knows where that actual finish line is. That said, Stephen, we should start a church and get people to worship the AI.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, like we could do well there, I think. And it's like this no taxes on that too. So
well, here's another idea that I had about this kind of stuff. Let's say you have a super AI that can self-learn and do experiments and test hypotheses for itself. It would figure out the physics of the universe almost instantaneously.
No, well, it would have to. This is the thing, right? Like, for any of this to work, at some point, it needs its own point of reference, right? Like, it needs its own point of collection. And I don't, like, beyond Earth, we don't do that so well. Like, we have tools, we have telescopes, we have all these things.
Yeah.
But it's like the whole, I think they did it on, what's the Matthew McConaughey one where he flies to the back? Thank you. Like, we don't have great data on it because we can't get it. Like, we literally need a thing.
But what I'm saying, I get that for like large scale stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm talking at the quantum fundamental level of the universe and how it works, where you don't need to go anywhere. It's tiny things. And so if you have a computer that runs on a quantum computing, which exists in the realm of this tiny fundamental level, it would figure out how to manipulate that fundamental level.
Maybe.
And we don't know what that is right now. If we knew what it was, scientists would stop working. And they're not even fucking close. But if you had a computer that could understand it, like an AI that could understand it at whatever level you need to be able to understand it and to use it, who's to say it couldn't manipulate time or physics or anything to embody itself as a being or the entire universe itself?
And then shut itself off.
And then shut everyone off at the same time.
Maybe.
And the heat death of the universe, it would just be done.
We go again. That could be it.
And then the closing shot is in the darkness. You see the black hole-sized Boltzmann brain just floating off into nothingness and disappears into the black.
There we go. I'd watch
Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, no, I definitely watch it. That sounds good.
Oh, man. I don't know how you're feeling right now. It's been, hour 25.
It's always a marathon, Steven.
Yeah.
It's always that.
I think this is good. We'll just have to get you back on again. And we'll just...
So what's going to happen, though, is that each time I come back, we'll have to be exponentially quicker so we can recap the stuff that's happened in the same amount of development in less time. Well, and then eventually it'll be every hour that we have to keep going.
The next time it'll be like robots that are just going to be attacking the house while we're trying to record this. Oh my God, they're outside my door. Bow down before your AI overlords. And then you just transfer into a different dimension.
We have found the Steven.
All because of this one podcast. Maybe. Hey, if it gets access to this and it's like, hey, those are some really good ideas. It's like, no, we wrote our own death into this.
Again, good movie though, right?
Oh yeah, great movie.
So
we'll get AI to write it.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, well, this has been great, Jeremy.
Absolutely.
Stop the recording here. I hope everybody enjoyed hearing us ramble on about AI, and AI, if you're listening, whichever company you are.
We'd love to have you on next time.
We would love to have you on next time. Please don't murder us.
Yeah.
And give us jobs being prompt masters.